Throughout the Gospels, the Pharisees are presented as being antagonistic to Jesus and his message. We generally think of them as vain and conceited, hypocritical, and the term Pharisee today has negative connotations. So it may come as a surprise to know that the Pharisees were actually the good people of that day. They were intelligent, righteous, and observant of the law in every mechanical detail. In fact, they were so righteous that they became self-righteous. They felt they had no need of God's mercy or forgiveness, for they performed well all that was required of them. Observance of ritual saved them. That's what they thought. In today's episode, the Pharisees take up something small, the custom of cleansing oneself before sitting down to a meal, and badger the disciples about why Jesus exempts himself from these legal niceties. How can he be good if he neglects these details of the law, they say. In reply, Jesus draws a distinction between what goes into a man through the food he eats and what comes out of a man from the thoughts he thinks. Food of itself cannot contaminate you, he says, and the distinction made between clean and unclean food is artificial. Food which is tainted can at worst give you a stomachache, but it leaves your character intact. But what can harm you are the thoughts which fester in your mind: lustful desires, plans for revenge, the ambition to grab what isn't yours, the urges to violence. All these urges lead one to evil action. So it's what comes out of a man's heart which can hurt him even more than the kind of food he eats. The Pharisees fastened on the external action, the ritual. Jesus looks at the interior disposition, the attitude. This is why the word Pharisee today describes the consummate hypocrite, the one who pretends to piety while his heart is consumed with evil. Today's Gospel gives us yet another instance of the deviousness of the Pharisees. The law of Moses, as enunciated in Deuteronomy, enjoined the Jewish community to honor and care for their aged parents. However, during Jesus' time, an oral convention had come into vogue, namely the use of the word korban, sacrifice, as a formula for a sacred oath. A Jew, therefore, might say to his parents, "Anything of mine which could be used for your benefit is now set apart as a sacrifice for God." Thus, says Jesus, you Pharisees use a bogus oath to nullify the demands of Scripture and to let yourself off your responsibility for caring for your aged parents. You pretend that you are offering a sacrifice to God, whereas in actuality you are disobeying one of God's commandments. Put in a sentence, Jesus was sharp in his criticism of those good people who claim they are worshipping God when in actuality they despise and dishonor their neighbor.